When you hear the name Richard Nixon, what pops into your head? Watergate? Secret tapes? A president forced to resign in disgrace? That's the popular image, Nixon as the villain of American politics. But here's the twist. The same man who became a byword for scandal also transformed the environment, reshaped world diplomacy, and enforced civil rights like few presidents before him. It's easy to forget that history is complicated, that someone can be deeply flawed and still make big, positive changes. So today we're diving into Nixon's presidency to ask, was he really evil, or was he misunderstood? Part 1. Nixon the Environmental Reformer. Let's start with something you might not expect. Richard Nixon, the man who gave us Watergate, did more for the environment than almost any other president. By the late 1960s, Americans were angry. The Cuyahoga River in Ohio was so polluted, it literally caught fire. Smog blanketed Los Angeles. The 1969 Santa Barbara oil spill had dumped millions of gallons of crude into the Pacific. Nixon wasn't exactly a nature lover. Privately, he complained that environmentalists were out of control. But he could read the mood of the country. In 1970, he created the Environmental Protection Agency, saying Americans now saw pollution as the ugly byproduct of our progress. That single move gave the federal government the power to enforce clean air and water standards nationwide. Then came the Clean Air Act of 1970, which Nixon called the most important piece of environmental legislation in our nation's history. He signed amendments to the Clean Water Act, and in 1973, he approved the Endangered Species Act, even joking with Interior Secretary Rogers Morton, asking if the bald eagle needed a lawyer. His actions weren't just symbolic. These laws still shape American environmental policy more than 50 years later. Part 2. A diplomatic earthquake. Nixon's biggest headline moment wasn't even domestic. It was on the world stage. In 1972, he shocked everyone by visiting China, ending 25 years of diplomatic silence. At the Great Wall with Premier Zhou Enlai, Nixon told reporters, "This is a great wall, and it had to be built by a great people." On the flight home, he quietly told Henry Kissinger, "This will shake the world, and maybe steady it too." And he was right. Opening China pressured the Soviet Union, eventually leading to improved US-Soviet relations. Speaking of the Soviets, Nixon signed the SALT I Treaty, the first big nuclear arms limitation agreement. When Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev bear-hugged him at the signing, reporters called it the bear hug of peace, a powerful symbol of détente during the Cold War. Then there was the Yom Kippur War in 1973. When Israel's ambassador urgently requested US support, Nixon reportedly said, "Send everything that can fly." That massive airlift not only changed the course of the war, but also strengthened America's role as a key power broker in the Middle East. Part 3. Civil rights progress. Nixon doesn't often get credit for civil rights, but under his leadership, Southern school desegregation accelerated dramatically. In 1970, he quietly met with Southern governors, urging them to support peaceful desegregation. He reportedly said, "Let's do what's right, and history will judge kindly." The numbers tell the story. In 1968, around 70% of black children in the South still attended segregated schools. By 1972, that number had dropped to under 10%. He also implemented the Philadelphia Plan, which required federal contractors to set goals for hiring minority workers, laying the foundation for modern affirmative action. When labor unions protested, Nixon told an aide, "They'll hate me today, but they'll thank me tomorrow when this works." These actions reshaped workplace equality in ways that still echo today. Part 4. Reshaping the economy. Nixon also made bold economic moves. In 1971, he took the US off the gold standard, ending the Bretton Woods system that had pegged the dollar to gold since World War II. The night before announcing it on television, Nixon rehearsed his line, "We must protect the dollar from the attacks of speculators," because he knew markets would panic. Economists later dubbed the move the Nixon shock, and while controversial, it paved the way for the flexible exchange rates we use today. That same year, inflation was soaring, so Nixon imposed wage and price controls. Even George Meany, a union leader who rarely agreed with Nixon, called to congratulate him. Nixon laughed. "George, I didn't think I'd live to see the day we agreed on economics." He also championed revenue sharing, returning federal funds to state and local governments. At one rally, he handed a mayor a comically oversized check. The mayor grinned and said, "Mr. President, this is the biggest check I've ever seen." It was a light-hearted moment that illustrated Nixon's belief in decentralizing power. Part 5. Space, Safety and Railways. Let's not forget space. Nixon was president during the Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969. After Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon, Nixon phoned them from the Oval Office, saying, "Because of what you have done, the heavens have become part of man's world." Armstrong later said it felt surreal to hear the president's voice from 250,000 miles away. Back on Earth, Nixon created OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, to enforce workplace safety. At the signing, he joked, "This might even keep a few lawyers out of trouble." And in 1971, he created Amtrak, preserving passenger rail service that private companies had abandoned. His press secretary teased that Nixon was more of an airplane man, but Nixon said saving rail service was vital for communities across America. Part 6. Ending America's role in Vietnam. When Nixon took office, the Vietnam War was a quagmire with no clear path forward. His Vietnamization policy began withdrawing US troops, shifting the burden of fighting to South Vietnamese forces. He told South Vietnamese leaders it was like teaching a man to fish, helping them defend themselves rather than depending on the US. By 1973, his team negotiated the Paris Peace Accords, officially ending direct American involvement. Secretary of State William Rogers recalled Nixon quietly saying, "Finally, peace with honor." The war's legacy is complicated, but Nixon did take steps to bring American soldiers home. So was Nixon really evil? His abuse of power during Watergate, ordering cover-ups, paying hush money, even targeting enemies, was serious and rightly condemned. But to see Nixon only as a villain is to miss the full picture. He gave us cleaner air and water, protected endangered species, enforced civil rights, opened China, reduced nuclear tensions, stabilized the economy, supported the space program, safeguarded workers, and began winding down a bloody war. Nixon himself once reflected, "Only if you've been in the deepest valley can you ever know how magnificent it is to be on the highest mountain." Maybe that sums him up, a man who reached historic heights, but also fell into a deep valley of scandal. So what do you think? Was Nixon misunderstood, or do his wrongdoings overshadow his achievements? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more untold stories of history.